Hey, church family. All of us have wrestled with the problem of pain. The question of why an all-loving, all-powerful God would allow good people to suffer. In fact, the problem of evil is often cited by atheists as their number one reason for not believing in God. In the book of Job, we read the story of the suffering of a righteous man. In the very beginning of the book, the curtain is pulled back, and we're given some insight into the events in heaven. Satan approached God and asserted that the only reason that God's servant Job was righteous and faithful to the Lord was because God had blessed him so greatly. Satan predicted that if God allowed Job to suffer, then Job would curse God. So God allowed Satan to test Job. The only limitation placed on him was that he couldn't kill him. You read the story and you see that Satan attacked Job's health, his livelihood, and killed his children. In chapters 3 to 37, we have the record of conversations that Job had with his wife and his friends. His wife's advice was to curse God and die. Job rebuked her, saying, "You talk like a foolish woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad?" His friends, no doubt, meant well, but their conclusions about Job's problems were also incorrect and simplistic. Job repeatedly maintained his innocence and felt as if his friends were judging him. Job and his friends debated back and forth about why God would allow Job to suffer while evil people appeared to prosper. Job definitely questioned God and said that he wanted to argue his case before him. But he didn't curse him or reject him. On the contrary, he held to his faith and said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." In chapters 38 to 42, God answers Job by speaking to him through a whirlwind. Basically, God asked Job where he was when God created the world. Does Job have the power and the know-how to rule and care for the entire world? God also challenged Job by asking him, "Will you discredit my justice and condemn me just to prove that you're right?" When Job was complaining about how God allowed him to suffer while evil prospered, he was basically saying that if Job were God, he'd do a better job of running things. In the end of the book, Job repents and submits to God's sovereignty and God's authority over his life. He says, "Lord, I know that you can do anything and that no one can stop you. I was talking about things I knew nothing about, things far too wonderful for me." If you know how the story of Job ends, then you know that the Lord restored Job's fortune and family. In fact, he blessed Job twofold, and Job lived to be an old man who saw 4 generations of his offspring. God gave Job so much after his intense experience of suffering. But there is one thing that Job never got. He never got the answer as to why he was suffering. Instead, he was reminded of who God is, our Creator and Sustainer, who's all-powerful, all-knowing, perfectly just, and perfectly loving. When Job was reminded of that, he didn't need to know the reason for his pain. He knew he could trust God because God is sovereign over all. And I pray that just like Job, that would be enough for you and for me. Amen.